My name is George, and I've spent my entire life on that farm raising crops, tending livestock, and building a life that my family could be proud of. It wasn't just a piece of land. It was a legacy, something my father left me, and something I hope to pass on to my children. But one afternoon, everything I believed about loyalty, family, and respect shattered. It all began when my daughter Lisa called me from her husband, Mark's office. Her voice was hesitant, almost strained. "Dad, can we talk?" she said. I immediately knew something was off. Mark and I had always had a cordial relationship, but in recent months I'd noticed subtle changes, his tone when he spoke about the farm, the way he avoided eye contact when I mentioned long-term plans. When Lisa arrived later that evening with Mark, I noticed the tension before any words were exchanged. Mark sat stiffly on the edge of the worn leather sofa in my living room, his hands folded tightly in his lap. Lisa looked at me, eyes darting between us. "Dad, we wanted to talk about the farm," she said softly. I felt my stomach tighten. The farm was more than property, it was the center of my life. I had envisioned my grandchildren running through the fields, carrying on the family legacy. "What about the farm?" I asked carefully, trying not to betray the unease creeping in. Mark spoke, then his voice measured but firm. "George, we've been thinking. It's time for us to take over the farm. You've done a lot for us and we appreciate it, but we think we can manage it better. For the family's future, we should make some changes." I blinked, unsure I'd heard correctly. "Take over? What do you mean, take over? This farm isn't something you can just decide to inherit overnight." Lisa tried to soften the words. "Dad, we're not trying to disrespect you. We just think Mark and I could handle things more efficiently." I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was hollow, bitter. "Efficiently? I've been running this farm for 45 years, long before either of you were even thinking about managing property. I've bled, sweat, and sacrificed every ounce of energy for this place. And now you want to just take it from me?" Mark's expression remained calm, almost smug. "We're not taking it, George. We're just suggesting a transition." At that moment I realized something. This wasn't about efficiency. This was about control, ambition, and greed. Mark wanted the farm for himself, and Lisa, though she loved me, seemed too conflicted to stand firmly by my side. I felt a surge of anger, deep and cold, but I knew I couldn't let it show too quickly. I had to think, had to plan, had to act in a way that would leave no room for them to manipulate me. The next few days were tense. Mark and Lisa visited often, asking questions about equipment, crop yields, livestock schedules under the guise of interest, but I could feel the underlying motive. They were trying to familiarize themselves with the operations, planting seeds of entitlement that I refused to nurture. My wife, Margaret, passed away 5 years ago, and since then I had been the sole decision-maker on the farm. I wasn't about to relinquish control without making them understand the consequences of overstepping. One Saturday, Mark suggested we walk the property together. I agreed silently. It was a warm day, the sun reflecting off the dew on the fields, and I knew this was my moment to confront him without causing a scene. As we walked past the barns and pastures, Mark began talking about future plans, replacing old machinery, expanding crops, even altering the land for commercial purposes. That's when it clicked, I remember thinking. He didn't see the farm as a legacy. He saw it as a profit opportunity. He saw me as an obstacle. And that's when I decided it was time to act. I invited him to the farmhouse, where I had set up the long dining table with my legal papers, old deeds, and documents proving the history and ownership of every acre. "Mark," I said, keeping my voice calm but firm, "I want you to understand something. This farm isn't just land, it's family. Every tree, every field, every stone has been cared for by generations of our family, and I will not let you, or anyone, take it without understanding what that means." Mark smirked, thinking I was bluffing. "George, it's not about disrespect. It's about the future." I leaned forward, placing my hands on the table. "The future? Let me tell you something about the future. The future of this farm isn't measured in profits or efficiency. It's measured in respect, trust, and understanding. And right now, you've shown me none of those things. Lisa looked down, twisting her hands together. Dad, please, we just want what's best. I shook my head slowly. What's best? You mean what's best for you? Not for this farm? Not for me. Not for the family legacy. You've been sneaky, subtle, thinking you could edge me out without anyone noticing. But I see everything, Mark, every conversation, every suggestion, every attempt to manipulate, and I won't allow it. That's when I did something they didn't expect. I reached for my phone and called our family lawyer, Mr. Franklin, who had handled farm estate planning for decades. Within minutes, he arrived at the farmhouse, briefcase in hand. George, he said, eyes scanning the room, what's going on? I handed him the deeds, wills, and the long list of trust documents I had prepared over the years. I want them to understand who owns this farm, who controls it, and what will happen if anyone tries to undermine its legacy. Mark's confidence wavered for the first time. George, you don't need to bring him into this. I do, I interrupted, voice rising. Because you need to understand that there are consequences. And I won't tolerate this kind of disrespect from my own family. Mr. Franklin reviewed the documents, confirming my ownership and the conditions I had set in place for succession. The key clause, which Mark had apparently overlooked, stated that any attempt to force a transfer or to claim control without my explicit consent would nullify any inheritance, or claims entirely. Mark's jaw tightened. You're threatening me? No, I said slowly, savoring every word. I'm informing you. You've already shown your intentions? And now you know the rules? I've spent my life building this farm. I will not let it be taken from me by greed disguised as ambition. Lisa finally spoke, tears running down her cheeks. Dad, I didn't know he would... Lisa, I said, softening slightly, this isn't about him. It's about you understanding that family isn't just about what we want. It's about respect, legacy, and trust. And right now, you've got a choice. Stand with me or watch what happens when ambition overtakes loyalty. The room was silent. Mark knew he had been cornered. His bravado had vanished, replaced with hesitation. I could see it in his eyes, the realization that he couldn't manipulate, threaten, or rush me into giving up the farm. Then I did something even more unexpected. I stood, walked over to the front window, and gestured to the fields, the barns, the livestock. This is our home. This is where I raised your mother, Margaret, and your wife, Lisa, as children. And it's where I expect to continue building our family's legacy. Anyone who wants a part of it has to earn it, not demand it. Not manipulate it, but earn it through loyalty, hard work, and respect. Mark looked at me, defeated, and Lisa began to understand what had been at stake all along. For the first time, she looked at him and said quietly, Mark, maybe we've been thinking about this all wrong. Days passed after that confrontation, and the tension slowly eased, but the lesson had been delivered. Mark's ambition was tempered, and Lisa now understood her father's position in a way she hadn't before. The family began to cooperate more respectfully, listening to my guidance rather than trying to dictate terms. The farm continued to operate smoothly, but more importantly, the lines of respect had been clearly drawn. Years later, whenever I think back to that day, I realize how fragile family loyalty can be and how easily ambition can blur the lines between respect and entitlement. That moment when I stood my ground, called in the lawyer, and made my intentions crystal clear, changed everything. Mark never tried to force control again, and the family grew stronger because of it. It wasn't just about the farm. It was about dignity, respect, and the principle that some things, especially family legacies, aren't up for grabs. And in that moment, as I walked across my fields at sunset, the smell of the earth rich and familiar beneath my boots, I knew I had protected more than land. I had protected honor, tradition, and the true meaning of family.